Greetings everybody and welcome to Gizmo Labs, where I show you all the tips and tricks you need to become a pro at Grounded Playgrounds. Sometimes you might go to a point in a map where you would like to go ahead and equip the player with certain items, or to go ahead and fill their inventory with, for example, some heals or some alternative weapons, or maybe even some other secret stuff. And fortunately, there are two gizmos that go ahead and accomplish this. They are the Equipment Equipper and the Inventory Filler. And this tutorial is going to go ahead and show you how to use both of them. So, without any further ado, let's get started! The first of these gizmos we're going to look at is the Equipment Equipper. Now, this is very simple. All it does is essentially goes ahead and equips the player with weapons and armor directly onto their person itself. This does not go ahead and drop stuff into the backpack, but rather goes ahead and uses these equipment slots down on the right hand side of the inventory UI, and it essentially fills those out. So if we go into one of these things, you can see that you have a slot to add displayed gear. So it almost acts a little bit like an armor dummy, but it will also automatically equip the player when they go ahead and go near it. So let's go ahead and see how to go ahead and fill these up. The first thing you need to do is get the gear into your main inventory. So to do that, we're going to go ahead and come into here, and we're going to go into the weapons tab. Then all you got to do is select the weapon you want. Now, if you go ahead and select this with space, it will go ahead and put this in the world. And unfortunately, that's not what we want to do. We want to go ahead and put it into our player's inventory. So we're going to go into here, and then on PC, you just say press W, and it'll add it to your inventory. So we're going to do a termite axe and a black ox hammer, and then we're going to go down a bit, and then we're going to select some armor. So let's go ahead and select, let's go ahead and say, let's type in ant here and see what comes up. So let's go ahead and select a black ant shield and a fire ant shield, and then we're also going to go ahead and use the black ant helmet, the fire ant helmet, and then we can use the black ant chest, the fire ant chest, then the black ant legs and the fire ant legs as well. Let's also go ahead and give them a trinket as well. Let's go and give one of them Thor's pendant, and the other one will give them the mantis trinket. Now all you do is go into here, and then you go ahead and put the stuff in that you want. So for this first one, I'm going to have the black ant gear. So we're going to have all of the black ant gear with the termite axe here. I'm going to equip those in, and the black ant obviously relies on crits, so we're going to go ahead and give them this mantis trinket right here. Now in the other one, I'm going to go ahead and put in the other stuff here, and I will go ahead and do that, and there we go. So as you can see, our equipment equippers now have the stuff in them. But how do we go ahead and activate them? You'll see if I go into play mode and just walk around a bit, well, nothing's happening. My player's not been equipped with either of these things. So how do we go ahead and make these things activate? The simplest thing to do is go ahead and just set up a button or some kind of pressure plate, which will go ahead and link up to each of these things. So let's go ahead and put a pressure plate down right here. I'm going to put another pressure plate down, and I'm going to go ahead and set the weight to low so it can detect players. And I'll go ahead and put another pressure plate right over here, which will have copied those settings. Then all we need to do is link the pressure plate up to this one, and then link this one to this one. And all we need to say then is on the links, it says when the pressure plate is activated, it grants equipment, and when it's deactivated, it does nothing. Now if we go into play mode, you'll see that when I step on the pressure plate, it will go ahead and equip me with all the gear from that equipment equipper directly into my equipment slots. So as you can see now, I've got a load of black ant stuff, and I've got myself the termite axe. Now, if I go step on it again, it'll also go ahead and just re-equip me with all that gear. So if you have durability turned on in your world, for example, the equipment equipper will give you full durability weapons back. So that could be kind of useful if you want a player to be able to repair their equipment. However, if you go step on a different one, like this one here, you'll see now that I've been equipped with the fire ant gear, but as you can also see, my black ant gear is no longer there in my inventory here, nor is it in my equip slots. It's actually been deleted and overwritten completely. So you do want to be very careful when using this, because if your map relies on the player, finding and crafting their own weapons and armor, and then you just go ahead and give them something else, it will actually overwrite the stuff that they crafted, which could also potentially mean that any upgrades they've applied to those weapons and armor will actually get overwritten and deleted. So you do have to be very, very careful with those. Now, the other thing is, you might want it to only go ahead and trigger one time, right? So I'm going to go ahead and delete this one here, and we're just going to leave this one here. How can we make it so that this thing will only ever give the player gear the first time that they use it, and never again? Well, the first thing we'll do is this time we'll set up a button, and what you usually do is you go ahead and link up the button right there, and then it will grant the equipment when I press the button. But as you can see, I can essentially spam the button and it's going to keep granting me that equipment, which obviously isn't really the desired behavior. All you need to do in order to make that not happen anymore is just grab a counter with condition, set to equal to 1, and then just put the button into that, and then just put the counter into that. And essentially, this will only allow that button to trigger once. So if I press the button the first time, it will go ahead and give me that. And then if I press it again, you can see nothing else is happening because I've already gone ahead and got my gear. So if you want to go ahead and give the player gear only one time, that's a very, very useful way to do it. You can also go ahead and use things like trigger volumes to activate these as well. So for example, if I was to go ahead and put down a trigger volume like this, I can put one right over here, and then we'll go ahead and set this to our counter. So again, it only activates once. Then I can just go ahead and when my player walks into this area, they will go ahead and be equipped with some gear. So very useful if you're making arena builds where you want the player to have a preset amount of gear before they go into their fights. And as you can see, I'm stepping back into where that trigger volume is, and because I've got that counter with condition there, nothing else is actually happening. So that is the basics on how to use the equipment equipper. And as you can see, it's a very simple gizmo, and it's very easy to make it only fire one time. The next gizmo I'd like to look at is the inventory filler. This thing works in a very similar way to the equipment equipper. However, instead of equipping to your player's armor slots directly with your trinkets and your weapons as well, it actually just goes ahead and puts the items directly into the player's backpack. Now, just like the equipment equipper, you can go ahead and deposit items inside here, and as you can see, there's as many slots right here as needed to go ahead and fill this out, and it will go ahead and essentially deposit all these things into the player's inventory. Now, there's a very important thing to note with this. If we go ahead and put it down, take notice of the order that I put these things in right here. So as you can see, I've got the termite armor, and I've got some fire bandages, and I got some syrup. It does seem that this thing does have a preference for some items over others. Now, I'm not sure why this is, but you'll see that if I go ahead and link this up to this button, when I go ahead and pull this to fill up my inventory, you can see that it actually gave me the smoothies first, so it doesn't give you the items in the exact order that you need. Now, this is a very important point to bear in mind, because if your player has a very, very full inventory and then goes ahead and is equipped with some stuff from the inventory filler, it might not necessarily give them the items that you put in first, so you cannot use the item ordering as a way to prioritize loot from your inventory equippers. These things come in most useful towards the start of your map when you want the player to get equipped with something rather quickly and not have to worry about finding stuff themselves. But remember, as your player does go through the maps that you make, they may end up getting more and more equipment, especially if you made some kind of adventure map where they have to find or craft stuff themselves. So if you want to go ahead and ensure that the player might get some necessary inventory, instead of using an inventory filler, I actually recommend using a chest that you just have a lock on that the player needs to meet a condition with. So instead of the inventory filler, what you can do instead is put down a chest, put all your stuff into it that you'd like, and then you can go ahead and then set this thing to go ahead and require a key to unlock, or you can go ahead and maybe set up this button to go ahead and unlock the chest as well. So there's a couple of different ways to manage your inventory later on into the map. You do have to be careful though, because as I said, it will go ahead and in this case it's actually prioritizing smoothies. So instead, if I wanted to make sure that the player had termite armor and they already had 38 of these slots filled up with inventory, they might not actually get the termite armor and instead actually get some other stuff. This is also especially true if you go ahead and press this one time only. So for example, this one can actually be activated as many times as I like, and you can see that every time I press this button, I'm actually getting all of the equipment from this thing every single time. So as I go in, you can see this inventory filler doesn't actually empty out after the first time you use it. It actually just stays full of inventory and it will continue giving the player that stuff. However, like before, you can go ahead and make this a one-time use thing if you want to, by going ahead and putting a counter with condition between these, link the button to the counter, and then link the counter to the inventory filler, and then you'll go ahead and just press this, and it'll only give you those items one time only, which again is very, very useful if you don't want the player to be able to get like infinite heals or like cheese anything that way. So you can go ahead and do that. But like I said, for later on, if you're not sure if the player's inventory is going to be like super full in the late game of your map, you might want to consider using a locked chest instead to ensure that the player can then sort through their own inventory, because if you've only got a one-time use of these inventory fillers, then you may end up not giving the player the gear that they need. And just like that, guys, we have come to the end of another tutorial, and I hope you guys now understand how to use the equipment equipper and the inventory filler. Now, we did also use the counter with condition gizmo in this tutorial, and if you do want to know about how that one works in more detail, then go ahead and check out my logic gizmos tutorial in the Gizmo Lab series. You can also go ahead and check out the mega tutorial for Grounded Playgrounds 1.3 if you haven't seen that already, which gives you a general overview of all the different types of gizmos that were currently added, apart from the randomizers, of course, because they weren't added when I recorded it. But if you do want to have a tutorial about all the other gizmos, then please be sure to go ahead and check those out as well. Links to those, of course, are in the description and in the comments as well, so if you want to find those, you should be able to pretty easily. Also, if you do want to share your playground codes, feel free to go ahead and join my Discord, where you can go ahead and put them into the Share Your Playground section over there. And finally, if you want to go ahead and have a tutorial made just for you on something else, then please go ahead and let me know in the comments, because I'm always looking to help you guys make the best playgrounds that you can. So if you can think of anything in particular that you would like to see, then go ahead and let me know, and I'll see if I can figure it out. But that's going to be all from me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. So until then, bye!